So now we've talked about oscillators, wavetables, wave position, and using the sub-oscillator. In this very simple example here, we've got the sub engaged, got it -1 octave. I'm going to go ahead and reset transpose so there's no global transpose. And I'm just using this basic saw detuned wave, and we have this sound. You can hear the sub in there if you're using headphones or good speakers. Now let's look at the dual filter. So we've got one filter engaged here. It's not really doing anything. We can hear how that starts to affect the sound, right? But we can actually use two different filters. So if I go ahead and engage that second one, we kind of have two controls, 1 and 2, and I can actually wind up creating kind of like a complex bandpass here. So having two filters is really nice when you want to just kind of get creative with sculpting the timbre of your sound, changing the harmonics and partials that are present. And the fact that you've got two filters present in the wavetable synthesizer gives you a lot more choices. Of course, you've got standard resonance and the frequency cutoff. So these are common controls to almost all filters. But you've also got 5 different kinds of filter models here. Now clean, that's basically the same as an EQ8. So this is like the very simplest, very cleanest filter that's used in the EQ8 plugin made by Ableton. So it's super clean, it's very CPU efficient, but it really doesn't have any modeled personality. Now the OSR, that is based on the Oxford Oscar analog synthesizer. And it's also similar in its design to the Oberheim SEM. So if you're familiar with either one of those, then this could be a filter model that kind of makes sense to your ears. The MS2 is based on a Korg MS20, and then the SMP is kind of a hybrid model that's designed by Ableton. It's not really based on any vintage piece of gear. The SMP is kind of based on the MS2 and the PRD. They say that it's kind of a hybrid of these two. So if you maybe not that crazy about MS2 or the PRD, which is based on the Prodigy, the Moog Prodigy, then SMP is something kind of in between. I think that's why it's there, 4th in the list. You'll notice that the MS2 is only available for high pass and low pass filters, okay, as is the case with the Prodigy 2, the PRD. So if I go ahead and do a low pass filter here and a high pass filter over here, then I get the option of having the MS2. So having two different filters also allows for some creative filter routing. The default setting is serial, and that means that basically oscillator 1 and oscillator 2, they just kind of go into filter 1 if you have it enabled, and then whatever comes out of that goes into filter 2. My favorite way to use serial is to kind of A/B two different filters. So if I really like the way that this low pass filter works, and I wanted to see, well, what would happen if I used another low pass filter, but this time I use the Prodigy version. Let's see, A/B that. I'm going to set the two values exactly the same. Let's say 7K, and I'll set this to 7K, right? And no drive, that's a nice feature. Drive does come on a couple of these different models. Now I can kind of A/B, so this is what the MS2 sounds like. And this is what the Prodigy sounds like. Now of course together, whatever's coming into filter 1 is then going into filter 2. I don't prefer to use the serial filtering for that kind of purpose. I like to kind of A/B a couple of different sounds. So now I can just listen to that filter versus this filter. Because basically everything comes in here, goes out there. That's the way serial works. We're going to talk in depth about using filter routing later on in the course. So I'm not going to go into it right now, but suffice it to say that you do have a dual filter. Each filter has a collection of filter models, and then you also, based on different filter selections like high pass, low pass, band pass, that sort of limits the different models that are actually available. So not all models, for example, have a bandpass capability. But then when you are using two filters and you have them both enabled, you can actually use serial, parallel, or split. And so there's a number of really powerful features here that come together to really make the dual filter feature of Wavetable really powerful. And we're going to talk about that in detail, looking at each one of these different models, and then also looking at each one of these filter routing approaches later on in the course.